You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Hi, I'm Franco Luna, Puma Podcast. You're listening to Teka Teka News. In this episode,
I am affirming my commitment to advancing this country's tourism industry. This prioritization goes deeper than merely stimulating economic activities and generating job opportunities. It springs from the genuine love that you, me, and all of us have for the Philippines. And what better way to express that love than by directly incorporating it into our country's newest tourism campaign slogan, Love the Philippines. This is new branding which we unveiled today. It will serve as our guidepost for the Philippine tourism industry moving forward.
gaano ba kahalaga ang slogan o branding? At bukod dito, ano ba ang dapat pagtuunan ng pansin sa tourism industry natin?
The world is telling us how beautiful our country is. For indeed, in 2022, the Philippines was declared the world's leading beach destination, the world's leading dive destination, and Asia's leading tourist attraction, in addition to the Philippines now being the world's leading country for tourism. Palakpakan po natin ang Pilipinas. As we usher in this golden era for tourism, for our fellow Filipinos, for our beautiful country, let us find it in our hearts to have that burning pride of place for the Philippines. Love the Philippines.
You just heard Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco at the 50th anniversary of the Tourism Department. While she did praise the department for its efforts over the years, she managed to ignore the one elephant in the room. Its recent Love the Philippines fiasco. As you might already know at this point, the ad agency working with the DOT for that campaign was caught using stock footage of scenes that weren't even from the Philippines. The entire branding campaign fiasco cost 250 million pesos. The timing of the rebrand, especially with the fiasco, didn't sit well with some Filipinos. Given that the tourism sector is still recovering from the brunt of the strict and lengthy COVID-19 lockdowns.
Kung kilala na tayo, kung kilala na yung culture natin, then you can say, okay, you love me. Pero nagpapakilala pa lang tayo eh. Nanliligaw pa lang tayo. So, sino ka? So, who are you? Like, who are the ties? Immediately, ma-imagine mo na yung temples, ma-imagine mo na yung robes ng mga monk, ma-imagine mo na yung mga Thai family na kumakain.
That was tourism expert Randy Alampay. He's a professor at the UP Asian Institute of Tourism. Think of the other iconic brands we have even in our region. Malaysia, truly Asia. Mystical Myanmar. Cambodia, the Kingdom of Wonder. Besides the rhythmic adjectives, the difference here is that those countries committed to their brands and stuck with them for years.
We're not as known for land-based na ecotourism, at least hindi pa ganun, hindi as developed or hindi as prominent, and more so about our culture. It ties back to the earlier question of the branding and why is, for example, in Thailand, why is in India, why are Malaysia, why are their brands so effective? Kasi they've been able to establish a cultural identity with their tourism branding. Tayo hindi pa eh. Even with It's More Fun, I think It's More Fun is a good step in that direction because it implies that we Filipinos know how to have fun. Pero kasi yung as far as Philippines, if parang hindi tayo nakikilala, what is it about Filipinos that's fun? Or what is it about Philippines? Kasi for me, when you talk about Love the Philippines, from a tourism experience perspective, you have to have Filipinos in that scenario. Tayo yung lovable. We are the ones who make the rice terraces. We are the ones fun. We are the ones who make Boracay lovable.
were no stranger to controversial tourism slogans at this point. The 2010s saw the notorious Pilipinas ay ganda, and the conversation surrounding that was also dominated by plagiarism allegations. In 2017, there was Experience the Philippines, whose promotional video was also accused of copying a similar video from South Africa. But the problem with our local tourism goes beyond just branding or how we package ourselves to fellow Filipinos and the rest of the world. So let's look past Love the Philippines and talk about bigger issues facing the sector.
In the long run, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Parang masaya lang sa social media and then to argue about it. But actually, the brand itself is not going to be as critical as our ability to provide the infrastructure for visitors to come in. So airports, inbound as well as in connecting to the different destinations, and our ability to offer destinations that you'll fall in love with.
Now, post-pandemic projections have been okay, all things considered. According to the DOT's numbers, there were 2.38 million international arrivals to the Philippines this year as of May.
Optimistic scenario was that international travel would bounce back to pre-COVID levels by 2024. And so far, that's what's happening. Although parang medyo slightly ahead pa nga kasi last statistics, we are about at 80% globally of 2019 levels for international travel. So they're expecting we will get there by first quarter of 2024, nandun nakabalik na tayo sa globally.
Top sources of foreign arrivals in the first semester were South Korea, the United States, Australia, Japan, Canada, and China. Randy says we could be seeing a recovery as early as this year.
But Asia Pacific is the region which is taking the longest, slower. Like if globally it's around 80, Asia Pacific is at 54% of the 2019 levels. That's also because China was slow to open up. Our domestic tourism, when you're seeing revenge travel among domestic tourists, so punta tayo ng Boracay, balik tayo ng Baguio. But the international tourist arrivals aren't as parang next year pa siguro.
We're pausing for a quick break now. When we return, we'll tell you about the way forward for our tourism sector.
The National Tourism Development Plan envisions the transformation of the Philippine tourism industry to becoming a tourism powerhouse, recognizing the challenges that are prevailing and providing solutions to the same.
Again, that was Tourism Secretary Cristina Frasco. She was talking about the National Tourism Development Plan for 2023 through to 2028. And she says the full recovery of domestic tourism is projected to happen as early as this year if everything goes according to plan.
Therefore, we have laid down objectives under the NTDP that seek to address essential pillars of development, which global indices have indicated the Philippines can still improve on. And I will specify that one by one. Overall, the intention of the Marcos administration is to be able to tell the Filipino story, to highlight our culture, our heritage, our identity, and to reintroduce the Philippines to the world.
In the first year of the Marcos administration, the DOT came right out with key changes to ease the tourism sector out of the pandemic. The main objectives of the plan are improving tourism infrastructure, digitalization and connectivity, enhancing the overall tourist experience, all while developing and promoting the overall products. The NTDP also looks to diversify our tourism portfolio, maximize both domestic and international tourism, and strengthen tourism governance at both the local and national levels.
Sustained recovery of the tourism industry. First, in terms of international arrivals. Last year, the Department of Tourism set the goal of 1.7 million in international arrivals. We were able to exceed that goal by nearly 1 million by ushering in 2.65 million foreign guests into the country. In addition to that, the arrivals then translated to visitor receipts of no less than $215 billion dollars. And on the domestic side, we have seen a massive recovery of the industry with our regions ushering in an estimated 1.4 trillion in domestic revenues. These numbers translate to what matters most in tourism, and that is to provide employment and livelihood to our fellow Filipinos.
Tourist arrivals surged from some 254,000 in June to 434,000 in December of this year, leading to an improved performance for the whole of 2022. That gave a much needed boost to the tourism sector that was badly battered by the pandemic. UPAIT's Randy Alampay says we should take advantage of our gains in the tourism sector before and after the pandemic, as well as the growing number of tourists interested in visiting the Philippines.
With regard to your question of where we are now, I think it's important to point out na we're not starting from scratch. We started from even as early as towards the end of the Arroyo administration. Nag-umpisa na yung planning, yung National Tourism Development Plan, and the planning has been continuous. So even then, our major problems have already been identified, and that's what we've been working on for the past decade. Recognized naman yun eh. Infrastructure, we are 98% dependent on international air arrivals. So international airports talaga yung kailangan. So ganun pa lang, isa pa lang, and you're already seeing that.
But is the recovery strong enough for tourism operators and workers?
There has been also an increased demand or great shift on longer trips if you compared to an average of 2 or 3 nights travel. There have been more travels that lasts 7 nights or more. And in relation to extended travels, there are more tourists that also prefer to experience tourism, where travelers travel for the sake of experiencing a unique culture and tradition from foreign countries. Well, our concerns in the tourism industry is how do we make these travels, these packages, and these tourism services accessible to all travelers. This also includes the inconveniences of preparing a tourist visa, which not all travelers have the privilege to provide. There should be a stronger campaign against colorum travel agencies and tour operators. Government should have stricter policies, rules, and regulations for business permits, and there should revive the tourist police.
That's Michelle Thailand. She's president of the Global Tourism Business Association. She says that while pandemic recovery is surging in the industry thanks to revenge travel, the effects of the health crisis still weigh heavily on operators.
Improve the medical facilities in major tourism destinations like Bohol, Boracay, Siargao, Palawan, and others. And if another disastrous pandemic should hit our country again, the government, they should give subsidies to all tourism establishments like other countries did for their tourism stakeholders.
But the thing is, there are many other holes. Let me pose a very simple question. Sa tingin mo ba, totoo bang we give the world our best? Think about the experience you might have if you were to travel to the Philippines for the first time.
The primary cause identified was a problem with the power supply and the degraded and interrupted power supply, which had no link to the commercial power and had to be connected to the latter manually. The secondary problem was the power surge due to the power outage, which affected the equipment.
That's Transport Secretary Jaime Bautista apologizing for the air travel chaos in January of this year. You would think that would have been the end of it, but
we express our sincerest apologies to our passengers for the disruptions and assure you that we are committed to resolving these challenges. We value the trust and confidence of our passengers and are committed to providing safe, affordable, and reliable flights.
Yan naman ang Cebu Pacific sa Senate hearing nila noong June matapos na magreklamo ang marami sa madalas na pag-offload ng airline at sa epekto nito sa mga turista at pasahero. Dagdag mo pa ang issue sa immigration. Listen to Cham Tanteras, who went viral for a TikTok video ranting about what appears to be a power-tripping immigration officer when she was on her way to Israel to spend the Christmas holidays alone.
So I was brought to the immigration office somewhere in Terminal 1, and there was like a long line, and I wasn't asked right away. So I waited like more than 30 minutes or almost an hour for my turn, and then the immigration officer named Abdullah, I forgot his real name. So he kept on asking me irrelevant questions that I don't think is necessary for my travel, which is number one, if my parents were separated or together. Number two, if I have my yearbook with me.
You remember that story, don't you? That post eventually led to the Bureau of Immigration apologizing. For tourism experts like Professor Randy, giving the world our best means fixing our systems here at home. From building sufficient and quality tourism infrastructure, sound tourism policies, and how the Philippines can present itself as an ideal tourist destination. And that includes focusing on our smaller destinations too.
Our mga pambatok na destinations are still the same. We have Cebu, we have Bohol, I guess Palawan. I think those are the main ones. But we need the other destinations to catch up. When I say catch up, meaning we need other destinations to build the hotels, build their capacity. We want to compete in MICE, in international conventions. We want to host international events. Saan lang Manila. We want to go to international sporting events. Philippine Arena lang yung pinakamalaki natin. Well, in terms of international convention hosting, ano lang ba may Manila, Cebu.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Frank Paluna. This episode was edited by Freddy Blanco. Our Teka Teka News executive producer is Jill Caro, and our senior editor is Veronica Uy. If you're watching this on YouTube and you appreciated the episode, please do take the time to like and subscribe to our channel. It really does help us out in the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for listening.